Saturday Nite Cinema. We start in just a second. What's up? What's up, Jethro? Let's get going. We got a bunch of movies to cover tonight. We're talking money movies, and we're getting into wholesome movies, too. Tonight. Come on, let's go. Nice. What's up? We're getting to Jethro's favorite actor tonight, Leo. Toast. Spider guts. Human animal chimeras. Spider guts. Cows that produce human milk. What's up, Kristen? Toast. Spider guts. I can't cut Roach D short. That's it. Yo, what's up, gang? Let's talk about money movies tonight. We're talking about The Big Short and Catch Me If You Can. Two money movies. And we're going to get into wholesome movies because Catch Me If You Can, I've been watching a bunch of movies this week that went into really wholesome territory. And a bunch of them that, start off, you're not sure. You're not sure if they're going to start. Well, if the movies I'm going to cover, you've probably seen a million times. I'm going to get into those later. I'm sure everybody's seen these. If you haven't seen these films, these are good ones. These are good ones to watch. What do you want to talk about first? Catch Me If You Can. Let's do that. let's do Catch Me If You Can first. This is um, this is a Spielberg movie, 2004. And what's interesting about this movie is it came out. Let's see, this came out the same year. Yeah, it came out the same year as Gangs of New York. So Leo had two movies coming out just one after the other, and I remember seeing this one with. I saw this one. Yeah, I saw this one when I was living in Bristol, in England. Shouts out to Steph. I saw it with her, and it's a Christmas movie because Christmas plays a recurring theme in the film. It's based on Frank Abagnale Jr. that Leo plays in this film, and what I really want to cover is I don't I mean you know the aspects of the finances in the movie, you know, especially with The Big Short. I mean, it's a finance movie, and so that you know, I'm going to talk about the film and its narrative structure. It's sort of some of its thematic elements, and really how, you know, as a former actor, I'm going to talk about how these movies work. Really, how they convey the inner space of the actor of the characters put against the turmoil of the exterior events. And in especially both of these films, The Big Short and Catch Me If You Can, feature characters who are they either cause the exterior events or they are sort of wrapped into a system that gets out of hand. And I think that, first of all, I think that Christian Bale in The Big Short, this probably, you know, aside from American Psycho, I mean, we've covered American Psycho, of course, but American Psycho is like, it's sort of American Psycho with Christian Bale is kind of like Tom Cruise is to Hollywood. He's the one. It kind of transcends the categories we're talking about. It's obviously Bale's, you know, it's not even, you can't even say it's his best. It's sort of beyond that. But we're going to talk about his performance in The Big Short, because I when I rewatched it, I think it's important to go back and watch these films, because even if you've seen them a bunch of times and you are well acquainted with them, you got to go back and watch them sort of with fresh eyes, or sometimes you know, with a time distance, so that you can get something fresh. You know, you can get a new look into the movies. And he is so good. He's so good in this in The Big Short, because he plays a subtle character that does the exact opposite of what other characters who are playing this kind of character do. It's totally different. And the same thing happens in Catch Me If You Can, especially with Christopher Walken. Christopher Walken is, we just talked about him in The Deer Hunter. He won the Oscar for the Deer Hunter. And when I talk about Oscars and Academy Awards, it's, you know, that's what you sort of use as your metric sometimes with movies, even though it is what it is with those awards, and, you know, whatever they mean or whatever. But yeah, he was great in The Prestige. We covered Prestige and the book Prestige. He's great. He's great in everything, really. I was recently thinking about Bale because of his performance in The Empire of the Sun, 1986, which was one of my favorite movies as a kid, because he's in a, you know, it's the middle of the war, and he's playing war as a kid, but he's in an act, you know, with the actual war going on around him. Of course, that's J.G. Ballard, and I'll be covering Ballard again soon with The Drowned World. And also an interview that Ballard did when he talked about the war and what it was like in the camp with the Japanese as the overlords, because of course, Ballard was born in Shanghai, and when they were taken over by the Imperial Japanese, they were all sent to the camps. And it's not an opinion that you usually hear about the camps, especially coming from Ballard. And also, the inner space topic has been on my mind a lot because of him again. I mean, I'm really taking some time with that, and also with the book Neuromancer, because I'm going to talk about inner space and cyberspace. And Ballard really has gotten to me with something that he self-describes as inner space, which is the fact that he was a science fiction writer, but he was not, even in the 70s, the science fiction fan community didn't really welcome him at their things, and that's at their conventions and all that stuff, which was kind of burgeoning thing at the time, and that's because science fiction was sort of dominated by Trekkies, and science fiction, especially as an American phenomenon, and we're seeing that now, big time. Coming the different, the testing the bounds of reality, of course, with all the stuff we're seeing coming out of the news. But what he concentrated on was something completely different from outer space, and that was inner space. It's the fact that the future is not really what you thought it was going to be. It's much more mundane, and that's kind of a sort of a simplistic statement with that. But the concept of inner space, and also with the Dennis Quaid movie Inner Space, which I saw in the theater when I was a kid, it's a great movie. Great movie. Inner space is awesome. But inner space as a term has been really on my mind, and now it's sort of, as it does with the landscape of literature, sort of bleeding into all these other books and movies that I'm checking out. And I really witnessed this with Christopher Walken in terms of his acting in the movie. Now, again, to talk about actors, and especially the very well-known actors, it can be sort of a redundant exercise, because to be great at acting is, we all sort of see that. And I've talked about, that's one of the things that was a disillusioning aspect to me with acting, because in most cases, in a lot of cases, the actor, okay, let me put it this way. Actors and their inner lives, it's sort of irrelevant, because just like with books, the inner life of the author doesn't matter when we look at the text of a let's say a novel, because the minute that the author puts the pen to the page, or they're typing their work, just as a metaphor, pen to page, a new character is created. We have the life of the author informing it, but it becomes irrelevant. It's the page that lives. So it's the same with the screen and the actor. I don't really care about the inner lives of actors offset, but we see this with something like the Oscars. If you ever watch an Oscar ceremony, when you see an actor giving an award and they try to ad lib, many times this doesn't work, because they leave it up to the creativity of the writers of the film to give them a part. They need direction. And now with The Big Short, that's interesting, because the movie has a great script, but it takes improvisational actors like I was going to say Michael Scott, like what's his face, Steve Carell, like Steve Carell. That's right, Block Party, we're doing it live. Like Steve Carell is an improvisator. He's a comedic actor, and you don't really see him as a leading man. I don't really, and it's kind of irrelevant, but he is great in the movie. And and when you pass beyond the suspension of disbelief, and you watch characters that they hit on something in our lives as human beings, not just our lives as, your personal life, not just something that you relate to, but something that is archetypal, something that's revelatory. Then we get past that, and we go into the sort of bounds of seeing something that we go into the territory of, now we see why cinema has this veneer of living forever on the screen, with with actors remaining forever young, that I've talked about, but also that we get something that provides us an insight into what life is, what it's supposed to be, what it's not supposed to be, and in Hollywood they call this the stories. It's the telling stories. Jerry Bruckheimer says the telling stories is what I like to do. I like to tell stories. I'm a storyteller, but with Catch Me If You Can, let's begin with Catch Me If You Can, because Christopher Walken is great in this, and the thing that he does in this movie that's fantastic, that takes him away from, first of all, Christopher Walken in Catch Me If You Can is playing a damaged World War II veteran who is not, he doesn't tell anyone the damage that he is. In fact, everything he talks about is a romantic story of how he met his wife liberating a French village. And so it's the opposite. It's the opposing effect. It's we're looking at him and the great things, but we can see in his eyes that there's that he has pain. And he does the thing that I've talked about before. I think I've mentioned this on screen. One of the little secrets to acting in a performance is that, to performing, especially on stage, is that if you are acting drunk, if you have to play a drunk character, somebody who's been drinking a lot, the key to drunk acting is to try to act not drunk. Does that make sense? If you do the whole like burbling, slurring my words, and then you're falling over thing, it doesn't work. You can tell that it's overperforming, people don't really act like that. In fact, you know from your own life that when you're around people who are really, really wasted, it's actually the key to the way that they act is to try to control themselves to not act like that. That's when they seem more drunk. They seem drunker. And so the key is to try to walk a straight, like for instance, if you have to walk a straight line, it's not to slip all over the place and stumble and all that. It's to have the character try to walk a straight line. That it has to be in your mind that you can't do that, but you have to pretend to be sober. Does that make sense? So yeah, subtle cues. And so the same thing goes with one of the hallmarks of all performance, of all great performers. The average person, I think they kind of think of, especially theater acting. Well, let's say film acting. One of the great markers for a performer is that they can cry on cue. A professional actor can do that. A professional actor can reach inside themselves and they can, shed a tear. And one of the hard parts with film acting, of course, is that you have to do multiple takes. And so you got to have the ability to do that over and over. And that's why actors, are already sensitive people or the opposite. Extremely insensitive, and so they have to somehow create, psychopathic people have to create the ability to shed crocodile tears, right? But to grab you into the performance. But there are little tricks with crying. One of them is, of course, you put Visine in your eyes for the thing, or they'll give you some makeup or whatever it is. Another is, did you know this? Another is if you pull a nose hair. Did you know that? It's another trick. If a person somehow, if they're covering their face and they pull a nose hair, it'll make your eyes well up and you'll cry. But really the key to crying on screen is not that you are in a theater, is not that you're pretending to cry and that you hide your tears because you're not crying, because we can always see that in a film. We can see it when characters are supposed to be crying and they're not, and their faces are dry. It's when people cry, people's crying is it's also analogous to the actor's ability to form a gait. Like the first thing you do as an actor is you have to be able to have a personalized gait. You have to walk a certain way. Everyone walks as individually as a thumbprint. Everyone has something different. And it's the same with crying. There are different types of cries, and some people will audibly cry. Some people will cry like babies. Other people will get angry. Some people get angry. They get mad. They go into a rage when they cry. And what Christopher Walken does in this film, catch me if you can, is he actually does the drunk thing, which is that he tries not to cry. He actually, in the scene where he is completely vulnerable, he actually attempts not to cry, and we can see it. This is the Michael Caine thing. You can see it in his eyes that this character is truly overwhelmed in the situation, and so but he can't let himself. That's great. That's really. He's really good in this movie. He really is. And I think that's what separates a kind of a Christopher Walken from somebody like a Pacino, or, the people that, that we always count on those characters, Pacino and De Niro and those people. We don't need to discuss those people anymore. I mean, it's really the character actors who tend to be super. I mean, again, I think Elias Koteas is a superior version of Robert De Niro. He's like the alpha De Niro. He's kind of, he looks just like De Niro, but he's better. So Catch Me If You Can is about we got a young boy here. He's Leonardo DiCaprio. This movie starts off. It's great because it actually starts off with him it's non-linear, and we see him in France, and we know that he's being arrested. And Thomas Hanks shows up. He's the Fed who shows up, and he's going to visit Leonardo in a French prison cell, and he looks in there, and Leo's doing his coughing fit, falls on the ground. We know even without knowing the story that he's been hunting him for a long time, and he calls the guys, and then next thing you know, they bring him out. He looks like he's going to die, and then he slips away. He does the escape from Alcatraz act, and the Frenchman puts a gun to his head, but then he says, "Let's go home." So he's being extradited back to the United States. This is in the 70s, like 1974. And then we cut to young Leo back in America with his father, Christopher Walken, and his French mother. And they are living in suburbia. They're living in a great house. And his father's running some sort of successful retail business on Madison Avenue or somewhere in Manhattan. And they've missed their loans. And this sparks Christopher Walken being the type of character who you feel for him in this, in his absolute, how much he despises the government. But at the same time, he is one of these characters that I think a lot of people will probably know, which is a person who never fully takes responsibility for whatever the thing is and will always point to being a victim and that somebody's out to get him. This goes into like schizo territory. He's not that in the film, but he's clearly feels himself a victim. And one of the big questions of the movie is his moral attitude towards his son, because when you examine the film and how he acts, you feel like he's a heroic sort of father because of how much he cares for his son. But at the same time, the problem that Leo has in the movie, Frank Abagnale, is that he starts off by he's forging checks. He forges his grades. He's an imposter. He's a con man, but it's on a light level, and he's so likable in the movie that you really want him to win, right? But when the movie changes from a pretty decent movie into a really, really solid film, is when he brings his dad sort of his treasures, and he's he gives him his gifts and says, "Look what I've done with my life." And they never speak it to one another. They never say it to one another that he knows that his son is doing all this outlaw activity. He never brings it up, but you know that he knows, but he won't stop him. And he says, "Dad, he says, tell me to stop. Just tell me to stop." And he won't tell him to stop. And so then the movie becomes almost like an addiction movie. Like he has to keep going. He has to fill this void in himself, and Leo's void is to bring it. It actually becomes. This is why the movie becomes it like transcends into some sort of reversal of wholesome territory, because he wants to bring his family back together. He wants his father and his mother to get back together, and it's really touching. But he has to keep going. And that's sort of a similar thing happens in The Big Short on a macro scale, because once people start breaking rules, then they have to break more rules to keep up with appearances. And so then society sort of becomes like that, or at least the society of bankers and all this stuff. And the thing steamrolls until it crashes, right? The bubble bursts. Well, Catch Me If You Can is great because we see the father fall from grace. He loses his house. They move to this small apartment. He's got a positive attitude. They move to a small apartment. They're in New Rochelle. Rochelle. Well, I took a long journey to Milan to Minsk. Remember that Seinfeld episode? I was thinking, get that out of my face. Kramer is the agent for Bette Midler. Anyway, so they move into this small apartment, and then Leo goes to school. He has to go to a new school. He was at a private school. Now he's got to go to a puppy school. And he goes in. He gets shoulder checked by this Chad walking down the hallway. And then he goes into his French class. And then this is the first time where he becomes an imposter. He takes over the role of the French teacher. It's a very charming scene. He takes over the role of the French teacher, harmless, and starts teaching the kids French. And then there's a scene with the principal. The principal says, "Your son was planning a field trip, and he's been grading papers." Right? So he really like is in this mode. And of course, the dad kind of winks at Leo like, "This is very funny," and it is pretty funny. It's harmless hijinks and jokes. Then he shows in the office a girl is coming up with a fake note, and he shows her a thing which is foreshadowing his hanging checks, which is he shows her that you have to fold the paper because the first thing you do when you get the note from your parents is you fold it and you put it in your pocket. So you got to do that. So she's like, "I don't know what you're talking about," and then she does it, and then so it's very good. It's very good. It's a very good scene. But eventually he comes home. This is pretty heartbreaking. He comes home and he finds his mother in a tryst, or what has just been one, in a locked door in the apartment with his father's former business partner, who's played by James Brolin, Josh Brolin's dad in the film. That's James Brolin. And they play it off. It's very, 50 style. They play it off. And, she didn't do nothing. But she then makes this mistake, of saying, "You're not going to tell your father, are you?" And then the next time he comes, he's clearly, this is what breaks him, because he sees that their family is broken. And that was redundant, I know. But then he comes home again. And this next scene was really tough, because you got a teenage kid who comes home and the lawyers are there and they tell him that he has to sign on this paper and it's up to him to decide who he's going to live with, right? Either his mom or his dad. His mom is moving out. He doesn't understand, and it's really bad. It's really unfair. I think this is another scene that really makes the movie, because it doesn't matter if you come from this or you haven't, or we've all been kids, and this was just unfair. It was really, really tough. And so the next scene is Leo running down the street, and I thought this was great. There are two scenes in this with Leo running, and I got to say, it sounds very weird because we think of Tom Cruise running. Side note, have you noticed that Clint Eastwood also runs in every film? Did you notice that? Almost every film. Eiger Sanction. What was the last one I did? Dirty Harry, Magnum Force. He runs in a lot of movies. He's got a particular way of running to it. Sometimes he's boxing, but he never runs like Tom Cruise. The faster and harder that Tom Cruise runs in a film is relative to how much the movie makes. That's not the same with Clint Eastwood, but it's a kind of athleticism. He's running. And this movie is great because the movie's called Catch Me If You Can, implying that he's running away or that he's running. And there's one scene in the house when before they break up, when Leo runs into the other room, and that was where I noticed the gate thing, because he runs. Leo's 30 when he plays this, but the character runs into the other room, and this sounds whack, but if you watch the film and the way he runs into the other room, it's a particular way that he does it, where he is clearly on the innocent side of the journey in the film. He's running into the other room to plead, because he's going to do something and to come back, and he's full of exuberance for his family. This is a great family. This means everything to him. This is what they took from us, people. They took this from us. It's been a while. I had to throw a Stained lyric in there because I was at Thanksgiving with my one of my old friends, and his wife is cousins with the Stained singer. That's pretty badass. So I've been singing, it's been a while, the last couple of days. And then when I went to the party, I'd had that song. What's the, if you could only see the way she loves me. You know that song? It's that band Tonic. Because the only time I had nothing to do with that band. Never had their album or anything. But when it came up somewhere, I remembered the album cover, and I think of it being in my buddy's. He was the only one who had the album. He had it in his car. And so then I was, it must have popped up through the psychosphere because I was going to his house for Thanksgiving. And so I made sure when I was at the house that I sang that line 4,000 times. They said, we hope everybody had a great, if you could only see the way. Oh, I'm sorry, you were speaking? And then they said, well, so is everybody having a good, what about you? Are you having a good Thanksgiving? And I said, we've had cows that have been producing human milk for 10 years. Spider guts. Human animal pig chimeras. You think I didn't do that? You think I didn't do that at the Thanksgiving table, but I did. I also did it the last time I was there. Anyway, so what was I saying? Oh, yeah, so he runs, and it's really cool because it makes it, we believe the character is what I was trying to say. So, anyway, the next scene of him running is when he's running away, and he basically runs away from his life and his parents' divorce into his new life, which is as a criminal. He starts cashing checks. He teaches himself how to cash how to cash checks, how to write checks to himself, how to bounce checks, and he eventually makes his way through a series of careers that lead him up to something what he thinks is going to be glorious. And he goes from doctor to lawyer to airline pilot, and this mirrors the state of the American dream in terms of the hierarchy of careers, especially through the 50s, and the skyward aspirations of somebody who wants to provide, except he has nobody to provide for. He's trying to provide for himself and for his family, which reverses the family role in the film. Kristen says, BLA, you're like my husband's brother. Constant off-the-wall references around the boomers just to make us Gen X people laugh while everyone else is confused. If you could only see... Okay. Just wait till I get a new song. Yeah, are you guys... Look, man. Okay, so I got to say this. Did I tell you about the online autism test? Okay, I was doing this with my friend, Steph. Shouts out to Steph, one of my old friends from England. She's English, and I lived with her years and years ago when I was in drama school. A bunch of us had a flat together, and I was talking to her recently, and we were talking about how we're sort of similar characters, we have sort of similar personalities, and I asked her, "Have you taken the online autism test?" She said no, and I said, "Well, you ought to take it, but the trouble when you take it, at least when I take it, is that." I've passed. I don't know what that means to pass the test. That's how I saw it, is passing, which means I got 100% full. But that's because when I take these tests, I know the answer that the system is looking for me to score a 100% full spectral. So she took the test, and it said one of the questions was like, are you a disorganized person, or do you prefer, organization and scheduling? And I said, look, you need to do a write-in that talks about how that makes you think of train schedules, right? So she was like, I don't know what you mean. And I'm like, if you don't know what I mean, then you failed the test, right? But one of the other questions was, when you hear a song, do you listen to it over and over? Well, yes. I mean, that's legitimate. When I hear a new song that I like, I listen to that song probably for at least 7 full days in a row. And I'm talking only that song. So I'm talking over and over and over and over. Your geeky gackers? What, you got your whoozy whatsits? You got your geeky gackers and your flapjacks? Yes. I listen to it all the time. That's it. If you could, okay, I'm gonna stop. Let's get back to the. What were we talking about? Catch Me If You Can. This is a serious analysis. So anyway, he goes into his life, and the being a pilot, mirrors the ethereal aspirations that he hopes to achieve. But along the way, when he becomes a doctor, he learns Perry Mason. I like the Perry Mason scene because even though I don't know Perry Mason, I know that my great grandmother loved Perry Mason. She loved watching Perry Mason. In fact, she told me I remember hearing this conversation when she was talking to my grandmother and my dad when I was 4 or 5. I was 4 or 5. She died when I was 5, so 4 or 5. That I remember her saying that the most scandalous thing that she ever saw was on the television when Perry Mason took off his shirt and tie and he had a white undershirt on. And that was the first time that anybody had worn a T-shirt on TV. Now, that's not what made the T-shirt popular. Of course, that was Marlon Brando in A Streetcar Named Desire. But then, of course, you had James Dean following that, right, with Rebel Without a Cause. But I like seeing the Perry Mason scene because it reminded me of that. It made me think of a different time in America. So he learns how to be a lawyer. I mean, how to be a lawyer from Perry Mason, and he watches doctor shows to try to be a doctor. Do you concur? Yes. Do you concur? And it also shows his innocence. I mean, he's 16. He's 16. I think he's 17 when he becomes a doctor, and he fakes his way into it. He fakes a Harvard degree. With the diploma and everything. And one of the motifs in the movie is that he collects toys and trinkets because they're made in America at the time, and they have physical labels on them that he can rub off and then he can use to place on his diplomas or checks, and they mirror the actual logo. So it's very clever. And so anyway, he becomes a doctor, which is where he meets, what's the girl's name we just talked about? She was just in that film, the redhead girl that we just talked about. There are a bunch of these women. It was from Arrival. That's it. Yeah, on Ivan's stream. Talked about the girl in Arrival. So she's real young in this, and it's crazy when you watch it because you're like, is this guy, what is he, a creeper here? No, he's the same. He's actually younger than she is, but he's playing a doctor. Right, which is funny because did you hear? Remember a few years ago when there was that kid that also faked being a doctor? I think he had ads and everything. He said the doctor of love or something like that. I don't know, but this movie also is what inspired the movie that followed with Leo after Gangs of New York, of course. But it was The Aviator. I need to cover that soon because I think about the Aviator all the time. It's always in my mind because of the way the future, because this Howard Hughes comes up in almost every conversation that I have. It's coming up now because of this book that I read when I was in Malaysia in 2005. And when I was reading the book, it was, I think it's important when you read and when you watch movies to see yourself in other people. And the thing that I have in common, I guess, with Howard Hughes is, Leo plays a very true to life OCD sufferer in The Aviator, and I can that's me. People, it annoys me when people say that, when they do anything and then they say they're OCD. But I won't get into that. But anyway, the OCD has kind of bled into people talking about spectral behavior now. And then actually in real life they do kind of bleed into one another. One kind of can be mistaken for another, but whatever. So I need to do The Aviator soon. But so he goes from being a doctor to getting engaged to this girl, and of course he goes down to Louisiana and he meets Martin Sheen, infamous IRA supporter. Boo! Martin Sheen, allegedly, I guess, is what my friends told me when I lived over there. Uh, and but it's funny because he says that he wants to stop practicing medicine and practice law because he also has a law degree. And there's a great scene where Liam is talking to Martin Sheen about who are you, right? And this was the great scene. This was amazing. Leo is sitting on the sofa. Martin Sheen gets up and he of course wants to know, why are you interested in my daughter? What are you doing here? What? And we learned that Crispy, exactly. His daughter has done something terrible, and the parents did not like it. Okay, in the film, I won't mention it, but she did something terrible, and so they want to know why he's interested in her. But we feel like Martin Sheen, the lawyer, has figured out who Leo really is in the film, but it goes into a really human scene here. And Leo also, who is a great actor, he is great. He's great. He looks at him in the eyes and he says, I'm not a doctor. I'm a lawyer. He says, I'm just a kid who's in love with your daughter. Man, it was great. It really was good. This is the kind of scene that could have gone so bad. You could watch this and be totally, this is so lame or whatever. But it was real. You believe it. It was real. And again, the way, I'd say this, the way that Spielberg makes movies, and again, I mean, he does make hits. And what he did, no, he was not. Howard Hughes was not a Fed. Noah, what's his name? What's his name? God, I can't never remember this guy's name. The guy who was his right-hand man was both CIA and Fed. Howard Hughes was the guy who but he was basically the guy who controlled the CIA as the richest, he was the richest man in the world, and the GILMORE explorer and all that, writing letters to Nixon. But he's sort of, I think it's not really accurate to say that. But the guy who was the right-hand man that's why he used him. And what was that guy's name? Somebody tell me that guy's name. His right-hand man. The guy who he mostly used Mormons. We talked about that in the last stream. Anyway, not to get sidetracked here. But it was a great scene. He tells him that he's in love with his daughter. But then what happens is he starts to get caught on by Thomas Hanks. And Thomas Hanks is a Fed in the film, or in real life. I don't know. But anyway, so he what we get in terms of the Christmas motif is that every year Leo is calling Thomas Hanks at his office and speaking to him, and the first time that he calls him, he's it's this thing that I guess happens, which is where the criminal calls the hunter and the hunted contact each other. We see that, of course, in the S killer stuff, but they're contacting each other, and it's this weird relationship that develops. And he, in the scene, Tom Hanks says to him, "You're calling me because you don't have anybody else to call." Yeah, you are. Yep, you have to. And it's weird because Leo hangs up, but the thing is that he calls Tom Hanks because Tom Hanks also has no one else. Tom Hanks has no one to call him, and Leo has no one to call, so they match up, and they end up forming this surrogate father-son relationship, which is where he has the person who's calling him on his deeds like his father should have done, or like he wants his father to do. But his father is off the deep end, and he says, no one, his dad's like, no one's ever going to catch you. And the thing that I don't like about the movie is the stupid the janitorial metaphor that he uses throughout the thing. Two mice fell in a bowl of milk. One of them drowned, the other... Of course. So I hid it in the only place I could. An old airman named Wanaki, Knoxville, Tennessee. Yeah. So That's what I don't like about the movie is his little mice in the milk metaphor or whatever. I get it, but meanwhile, his mom has gone on to marry James Brolin, and Leo has met up with his dad at one point, and he says, "Look, if we can do this, if I can make more money, I can get you two back together." And you want them to be a family again, and it's very endearing. But throughout the years, Leo continuously calls Tom Hanks, and they always speak on Christmas. And when Leo finally eventually gets back home later in the movie in a nonlinear fashion from France and escapes from the airplane, he ends up running back home and seeing his mother. And the reason he does that is because Tom Hanks lied to him. He told him when he caught him was it on Christmas? It was on Christmas Eve. He's in the French village where his mom and dad met, where his dad liberated it, and there are carolers outside of a church, and Leo is inside this factory, and he's just got all this money and all these checks, and he clearly can't stop. I mean, it's sort of addictive metaphor here. And Tom Hanks tells him, that his father wants him back home, but when he gets on the plane, he leans over to him, and actually, like a dad, he leans over to him and he tells him straight up what happened. Your father passed away. I couldn't tell you before, and I'm telling you now. That's it. I mean, he tells him straight up. And Leo kind of goes crazy. He ends up getting out of the airplane, running on the tarmac, and running home, and then seeing his mom through the window. Of course, we have the window again, right? The window looking into the house from outside in the snow. We see that outside, this is the inner space versus outer space. In the inner space of the character, he's burning. He's burning with desire, a pure desire to make his family be a Christmas home, Christmas family again. And he's looking into the house. The house stands for the inner state of the character, and inside the house there's a hearth burning. The family's together. There's warmth, and the daughter is looking out the window. There's a new daughter. She's the mom is now giving birth again. They have a daughter, and she's looking right out the window, and in her reflection, she's seeing Leo, and he's outside the house in the snow, which is cold. Everything's cold. The world's cold, and he's looking in. So instead of seeing his own reflection, he's seeing this new family member. Really brilliant scene. And then, of course, we see the cop lights come up to the house. So instead of, red and green lights, we see red and blue from the police, and then he goes to prison. When he is engaged to the girl, the daughter of Martin, has anybody here seen Kelly? Kelly? My sister loves that song. We all... Every year at Christmas, on Christmas Eve, when we're sitting there, we just had dinner or whatever, and now we're sitting there as a family, we're talking. My sister will always bust out that song. Has anybody here seen Kelly? We love making fun of that song. It's great. It's very funny. But anyway, so, yeah, what was I going to say? Yeah, Leo loves the girl. He loves the redhead girl, and he wants to marry her. And actually... What makes the movie heartwarming is that even though he's a criminal and you're wondering, is he just using her? And is he going to leave her when the cops show up? Is he just going to leave? And he's going to leave the woman that he's engaged to, and he's going to leave this family that he's been lying to. But they managed to make that not happen. He says, my name is this. I'll be here. He tells the truth to Tom Hanks. He tells the truth to the girl, and he says, I'll be here at this time. Wait for me. And he wants to, and then it doesn't happen. So there's something different than just the con man who leaves. He's a kid after all, and he tries to have heart. Also, he's not like breaking into houses and ripping off people. It's what he's doing. So then he becomes an airline pilot, and there's a bunch of other actors that make their way into this movie. There's CIA girl, former Affleck, what's her name? Jennifer Garner. Jennifer Garner shows up as a counter conman woman. She's a conman woman, and she does this thing where she's like throwing cards at him, right? And because she's she was a good woman. Mama's apple pie, 4th of July. She's a hooker, right? She's an S worker, and she tries to take advantage of him, but he ends up getting the better of her in terms of the money or whatever. But she's totally miscast for the role. I didn't like her in this movie. I thought it was, she's got the broad ass shoulders trying to play this, this S worker. It just didn't work. But there are a bunch of other actors that show up in the movie. It's a solid movie. It's not packed with A-listers like we got Thomas Hanks and Leo and Christopher Walken's in there. But the rest of it is pretty solid with the people who are, it's endearing. It's endearing what they do. It's not a comedy, but there is a kind of tragicomic aspect to this. It actually reminds me of The Winter's Tale for some reason with Shakespeare, because exit pursued by a bear. He's being pursued by Thomas Hanks into the snow. It's cold. It's a romance. It's both romantic in terms of its the sex appeal of the movie, I suppose, but also because it's Romanesque. It's a movie where we are both idealizing the past, but also looking at the brokenness of it, especially with his family. It's in ruins, and he's trying to repair the ruins, and he's rich, but he's a poor guy. So it's full of sort of contradictions. And anyway, in the end, he ends up being busted, and then Thomas Hanks visits him on Christmas, and he immediately identifies how a fake check was made and probably the type of person who would be doing it. And then eventually gets a job working for the other side. And it doesn't end there, because there's a scene where he gets a weekend off and he wants to pal around with Thomas Hanks, because remember, he's still a teenager at this point, even though he's now fully working for the Hoover people. And Thomas Hanks goes to the airport and says to him, look, there's nobody following you. Nobody's chasing you. Thomas Hanks is also at the bottom of where everybody wants to be, because it's looking out for check forgers and stuff. And so they're both at the bottom. And then when he goes back to the office, he thinks, I've given him a chance to be free and to come back. We're not going to, this is like a true parental situation where you have to, he gives him the opportunity to make his own decisions and to be responsible for himself. And he ends up coming back. And then the movie ends with a happy ending, which is that the guy didn't go back to his former life and now is successful and works for corporate people, I guess. But whatever, aside from that, he's now made a life which is a normal life, which is going to work every day and doing the work, right, as they say. So it's a good movie. And Spielberg, I'll say this, what I was going to say earlier, Spielberg knows how to make a movie, and one of the things that he does, especially from somewhere in the early 2000s, he started doing this. It was after, maybe it started with SKG, with DreamWorks, which is that the way his films look sort of changed. It went into there's a digital aspect of it. He does this in Goonies as well, which has Josh Brolin, but there's always a soft light. There's always a soft filter on in his camera work. And that, to me, it shows me that a lot of the Spielberg movies are, about kind of rite of passage. But when we're supposed to look at those things and see ourselves in them, and this sort of idealized version of an idyllic childhood where it's adventures, and we see that there's a soft light to it, because it's like it's not rose colored, but it's like a glowing past. So that's Catch Me If You Can. Make sure you like and share the stream, you guys. Please hit me up with the links provided if you can. I would much appreciate that. Let's go into the next movie here, which is The Big Short. And this is a type of movie that when it came out, let me see, when it came out, there's Leo. There's Leo with the girls looking at him. I think they made a TV show about this, and it didn't work, of course, because we already knew the whole story, first of all. But it kind of works with these, they're all this is the way things used to be, right? But everyone wearing uniforms. I was watching this movie, Catch Me If You Can, and I kept thinking, it was a lot of the costume, the costumier, the costume people were accurate in that they kept showing people with hats. Everybody's got a hat. Everybody's got a hat and a uniform, and that's cool. That's a sort of pre to post World War II thing, and I know everybody knows this, but do you know when that ended? Do you know when people stopped wearing hats? It was this people stopped wearing hats in this country, like fedoras and pork pies and all that stuff, when JFK came around, because JFK didn't wear a hat. There are pictures of him wearing a hat, but he normally did not wear a hat, and so that went out of popularity forever. Isn't that crazy? So anyway, so The Big Short. The Big Short is a movie that I gotta take these out. That came around in 2015, I think it came out, and it's not a movie that I would ordinarily see because it's about the markets and finances and stuff. I actually have seen a lot of those movies, which is crazy, but that's because Oliver Stone and Wall Street. I even saw Wall Street too. Money Never Sleeps. But yeah, I didn't really care about the subject matter that much, except for the implications with the implication. Right, you got to watch the process. The implication with the geopolitical destabilization, but I'm going to leave that out of it because that's Jay was just doing a stream on of course geopolitics, destabilization, pushed metrics in terms of the economy, and so I'm going to leave that one. But I'm going to talk about in terms of the characterization and the narrative and what it says for us when we watch the film, because this is a movie by it's not Adam McKay. Is it Adam McKay? There's that who did The Big Short? Who did this? Let me see. I always wanted. Is it Todd? Yeah, it's Adam McKay. Adam McKay did this, and it's what's interesting with this is that he started off as a comedic director of comedies, and those are like The Other Guys. The Other Guys is a good movie, of course. A Peacock. You got to Watch Me Fly. You right? And then he moves into more serious dramas with this, and of course the other Christian Bale movie about Dick Cheney, which didn't go the way I thought it was going to go. But let's just think about this one. The strength with having a comedic director in a dramatic film is that when we have it's just like with Shakespeare, we can't have all serious matter or we can't have everything in one mode emotionally in a film because we get tired of it. That's why we have comic relief. That's why, of course, you have the Porter scene in Macbeth. And so this one is mixed with humor, and we even have Steve Carell in the film who has some serious roles, but I haven't seen the one about the creep DuPont. I haven't seen that one. The one with Channing Tatum. I don't want to see that movie. But this is a good film because it goes beyond a sort of simple, it's not simple comedy or just Ryan Gosling. Ryan Gosling's great, but it goes beyond just Ryan Gosling being charming in the film. The reason that the movie works is because of the unbelievable satire, the sort of meta satire and the ridiculous absurdism of the real life situation and how they deal with it in the film. And so The Big Short is about the financial market meltdown and the real estate crisis in 2006 to 2008, the real estate bubble bursting. And I think what's interesting about this movie when you watch it is that without knowing anything about big finance or money, and without knowing anything about that at all, you can obviously see that the things move in cycles and that things are purposefully driven, or that they can, the market, things can occur organically, but that you have the internet bubble, you've got the real estate bubble, and I guess now, of course, we're in the car bubble. The car market bubble is what people keep talking about. And the same thing will happen again. And what this resulted in, of course, at the tail end of cash for clunkers. We've got, listen, I went to a park in Botswana. We've got cash for clunkers. Don't send us your items, just send us your money. Remember that? Cash for clunkers. We want people to. I remember at the time when W said that, when he had we want to drive our economy. We want to give you a stimulus check so everybody will go out there and spend. We need people to spend money. I remember my dad saying, I don't know what this guy's talking about because the economy is not going to improve by people spending. It's built by people investing, or at least people who know what they're doing. And I'm probably making that a way more simplistic statement than it was, but he had a great point, of course, and this is all about people. This it's ironic because this movie is about people investing who are investing over their means, and they're being they're being allowed to do that. So the film is about the discovery of the fact. I would have to let Maddie, Digital Minefield, deal with the subject matter of this too, because he's way more adept at this. But it's about people investing in housing, getting mortgages, subprime mortgages, and the credit rating is they just throw it out the window. And so when they go to investigate, they go down to Florida, for instance, and they notice that they meet with this stripper. And the stripper owns 5 houses. And that's because she is, she's been promised an interest rate and it's going to explode. She doesn't know that. They've been lying to her. We see both sides of the thing. There are all these predators. There are all these people who are just parasites on the situation. And they're being allowed to do that because the government-tied credit rating is lying to people and even holding fast just to keep the market afloat. Of course, remember that the pensions were raided. Detroit went bankrupt. I had a pay freeze for 5 years because of this stuff. And a lot of people were shit out of luck with this. And what's really great about the movie is that it takes all the various sides of the thing. We see all the scumbags doing things on the lower level. We see people in the government, in the banks and the higher level doing it. Banks, corporate banks and government, of course, are one, doing all this stuff. And then we see the people trying to take advantage of it in terms of if people are going to lose, other people have to gain. So we see Michael Burry, played by Christian Bale, who is making very risky maneuvers. And then we have this Brad Pitt character in the film who I think is sort of forgotten in the movie, kind of underrated, who plays this investor who, when you watch him, it's crazy because the movie also predicts Karunka. Do you remember that? It predicts, in some aspects, the Karunka thing, because when they show Brad Pitt, he's masked up in the airport Asian style, and he's also, he's Purelling his hands all the time, but he also hates the government. And so it's sort of, what do you think? Do you think when that sort of thing came around, would he be pro or anti? It's sort of hard to tell with him because he seems kind of based because he's made all this money and yet he spends his time, day trading. He's got all the money, he needs, but he's day trading. He's got a family back at home, but he also doesn't want to be around people, which is fine. But he's masked up and he's doing all this stuff. Now, would he change when Karunka comes around and do the opposite? Or would he be totally ensconced in the system? I don't know. It's sort of, that is what it is with that character. But the point with him is that he does tell the two young fellas who have this small investment firm or whatever. This is the Brad Pitt character. He tells them when he gets them introductions into Morgan Stanley. And when he does that, he allows them to make their investments. They see an insight into the market, and they make some big predictions betting against the market. And at the end, they say, "Why did you do this?" And he says, "You said you wanted to get rich. Well, now you got rich." And then they're celebrating, and there's a great scene where they're celebrating, and he says, "Don't celebrate. This is what I love. This is what I hate about banking, about money. That you two are celebrating, and that means that a lot of people have lost everything that they have." Now, it's whatever, because they're in business, but at the same time, it gives them some moral clarity in terms of the ramifications of what they're doing, and so it's pretty good. But who we concentrate on the movie is, besides Steve Carell and Ryan Gosling, and all of the cameos in the film, which actually work really well. What we get in the film is Michael Berry. Michael Berry's at the center of this thing, and he's working for a hedge fund. Now, I'll say this: you kind of expect Christian Bale to be a great actor in every movie. We're already going to expect that. But the reasons that he's great in this are not the usual reasons, and this is why I'm going to kind of spurg about Christian Bale for a second. So, first of all, he's not you mama make me happy. He's not doing that in the movie, and he is playing he's playing a guy who is a financial markets genius, and who has a glass eye, who is, I guess, bipolar, and definitely spectral, and who bucks the system, right? He goes he kind of changes the way. It's amazing to watch the movie, because at some point you notice that finance bros went from Wall Street, pinstripe suit and tie, Gordon Gekko, to sort of wearing whatever, flip-flops, no socks, and T-shirts. And now it's back to, I guess it's Patagonia finance bros. Maddie would have to talk to us about that. But Michael Berry doesn't give a shit. And I love that that scene where he's on his drum set and he's listening to like Pantera. He likes listening to Metallica and Pantera, and he's bombarded with auditory sensation, because the exterior events, again, are juxtaposed against his inner space, is my theme for this movie. And that's who the character is. Instead of playing Rain Man in the movie and doing this obvious bullshit, it's like he's completely subtle and undertoned in the movie. So his spectral behavior, like when he's walking out of the office and they're telling him, it could be that you've made a mistake, and he's like, "I haven't made a mistake." Yeah, sign capital. I haven't made a mistake. Well, at the time, he didn't know it at the time. Did he go on to found his own firm after this? I think he left with his 429% or increase or whatever. But at the time, he's working for. I mean, he's given full autonomy in the hedge fund, but he doesn't own it. So he's walking out, and he says, I didn't make a mistake. They're lying. It could be possible that I didn't see something. But the way he says it, and he throws his bag down, I mean, he's really good. It's very, very difficult to play a character like this. And you totally believe. You forget. I mean, when I watch the movie, I forget that it's Christian Bale, and I think that's a great statement for an actor. It's a suspension of disbelief. We always know we're watching Robert De Niro. We always know we're watching Al Pacino. We always do that. All those guys. In fact, with Ryan Gosling, we know we're watching him, and that's fine, because part of his character in this movie is the charm, right? He has to charm all these other people, and it's very cool. But with Christian Bale, I mean, he's that's right. Yes, says make sure he went into investing big into all things water. Future valuable commodity, right? Even now. Big Nestle's coming for you. And he's just extremely believable. Steve Carell, though, also is really incredible in this. Because I forget that I'm watching Steve Carell, and his exasperation as the movie goes on is crazy. We know the backstories with some of these characters in the movie. We get to know their backstories in a subtle way. There's very little exposition, and in fact, the exposition that we get is purposefully upfront and expository. So, for instance, one of the clever things that they do is they bring in, it's a second person narrative. We're being talked to by Ryan Gosling as a kind of Greek choral character, and he brings in side characters onto the stage who are able to speak to an uninformed population. And if they're informed, if, like me with this, I don't understand some of the things, so they bring it in to speak to us on a basic level. And who do they bring into the movie but the people that other people who are uninformed when they watch this, or even the people who are informed, will automatically gravitate towards to. We have all of the different hallmarks of American corporate or entertainment society. Selena Gomez comes on the screen. I gotta admit, when Selena Gomez came on, I'm like, all right, I'm here to listen. I mean, she is fine. She is. Anthony Bourdain comes on. I liked how Anthony Bourdain, by the way, Bourdain made the most of his scene because celebrity chef Anthony Bourdain, I'm glad they didn't get Gordon Ramsay. They wouldn't because he's English. But I'm here to help you. How you going to speak like that to me? They should have that other guy, the bar rescue guy, right? You're going to be over-serving my daughter. Remember that Nick Rusher bit? You're over-served. So they bring in Anthony Bourdain, and you can tell that he's doing his little flair because camera's right on him. His eye line is up to his cue cards. He's not an actor, but he sort of is, and his eye line's up to his cue cards. And notice that he's chopping without looking, showing off. Right, that's different from Marco Pierre White. I like Marco Pierre White the best out of all those guys. Marco Pierre White is the guy. He's the guy who brings out the blade. He's the one who started Hell's Kitchen, and when he's talking to somebody, and he's like, you are, and he's waving a knife right in their eyes, and he's like, you are the best cook I've ever seen in a horrible kitchen. You're fired from not being on the show. You're gonna do great at being a terrible cook in this new job that you have to show improvement at losing money. It's like, what is he saying? But yeah, Marco Pierre White's pretty cool. But anyway, so yeah, you've been watching. Yeah, shouts out to Scuff Realtor out there, of course. Right, John Stupid, of course. Anyway, so anyway, they bring in these different, characters in American entertainment society to explain to us dum-dums and normies about what's happening. And that's really clever in the film, but it's also purposefully illusory. That mimics the clever thing about that is that mimics how many people understand important issues. Is if we listen to these people tell us, then this is where we get our advice, and this is where we get our geopolitical facts, and this is the reason that we're having problems, because no one can penetrate deeper into the causes for such a thing. So I like it. I like that they did that in the movie. But you also have to see the subtlety of why they're doing it. On the one hand, I'm being informed by, Selena Gomez about tranches, but at the same time, I'm understanding that I'm getting my information from Selena Gomez, and that's irrelevant anyway regarding how the system works and how it's going to crash. And so I like that the movie, again, is a kind of tragic comedy. Some people fail and some people succeed. And you feel bad for the people that have their pay frozen for 6 years. But you also like that, remember when Rage Against the Machine, though, played on Wall Street? Remember that during Occupy? I do think it's funny how all these people came out, how a lot of the people came out of Occupy who are big now, right? I just remember Luke Radowski. I remember Luke Radowski down there, and now it's all these years later, and he's big. I think that's cool. But it's just funny. It's just, I guess it's absurd. It's a kind of Ionesco absurdism, rhinoceros that we just can't sort out. And who knows? Anyway, The Big Short. The Big Short is not that wholesome of a film. It doesn't really fall into wholesome territory because it's about, first of all, it's a real story involving the continuous Rome-style destruction of the country and civilization. But the one thing I did like about it is that there wasn't anything gratuitous in the movie. I don't remember anything gratuitous in the movie, and I like that because it's a change from the typical shit that we get. Now, we do have people cussing and stuff in the movie, which is fine because they're finance pros, and I think that's funny. It also, by the way, this is the movie that inspired Succession. It had to have. It's got not Mark Strong. Mark Strong went to my drama school. It's got that other guy. What's his name? One of the finance bros, and Rafe Spall, son of Timothy Spall, the actor. Those guys who are working for Steve Carell for Morgan Stanley. That guy plays one of the brothers in Succession with Brian Cox. Will, have you ever seen a blade covered in blood in the moonlight? It appears quite black. Yeah. I'm your uncle, Argyle. That's right, Jeremy. Thank you so much, PC Bass. I'm your uncle, Argyle. I like Brian Cox a lot, dude. Brian Cox is another guy who is solid, I think, in everything I've ever seen him. I mean, remember in what's the movie with Nicolas Cage? Adaptation. Remember in Adaptation? He plays Robert McKee. You don't have a story? What the fuck are you doing without a story? People fall in love every day. They fall in love. They fall out of love. They love. They kill. They give birth. They die. That's a story. He's great. My friend Paul saw that guy, Robert McKee. He's a real screenwriter. He saw him give a speech just like that in Adaptation. Great movie. Anyway, Brian Cox is great. But so I haven't seen Succession. I just know that it gave rise to that. I've seen one episode of Succession, and that's because they filmed it in Richmond during Karanka when it was shut down. They flew in, and that was I liked that episode because the guy says something like, "There's a beta bitch," or something like that. He says that to one of the dudes in the bar. But that's I know people that have watched it, and I think they liked it. I guess. Let's get into some wholesome territory here. I'm going to briefly cover a couple of wholesome movies here because we need to do some positive posting. We're positive posters here. I'm a life enjoyer. So we need to cover a couple things here. If you want to support me, please think about doing so. I got some cool things on the way here. First of all, if you want to grab a super chat, I know people have been grabbing those memberships. And I really appreciate you because I'll be doing some more membership streams soon, some VIP section only. And I will be, of course, doing my inner space versus outer space and cyberspace, Cyberdyne versus the future is boring, trapped in a Greta, blah, 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 future Arctic Zone Pole J.G. Ballard stream coming up. Also, Jamie and I will be doing an analysis of Stargate. We're doing the Stargate conspiracy and the film Stargate, so that'll be coming out soon on her channel. So if you want to support me, please think about doing that. You can grab the links here and help me get some books. Help me. Oh, no, I don't want that to come up. I don't know how that came up. I don't care about Mark Twain's birthday today. I'm sorry. I've already covered Mark Twain, and I don't care about his birthday today. I really don't. So, yes. So, let's see. Okay, so let's do some positive posting here. First of all, I also want to give a big thanks to Kevin G, because Kevin G is the one who sponsored this stream, and it actually wasn't on these films, but he did inspire me to do this. And I'm going to talk briefly about one of the films that he wanted me to cover, which is Billy Bob Thornton's JAYNE MANSFIELD'S CAR. Now, you probably haven't seen this movie, and he wanted me to do a Billy Bob Thornton stream. I'm going to be doing more Billy Bob coming up because I'm watching what's the show? Landman. It's called Landman. Landman. And we watched 3 episodes of that, and it's good. It's pretty good. Also, I'm going to talk a little bit about Bad Santa tonight, but I need to do a full Billy Bob. He's only the smartest man in the world. Remember in Armageddon? But thank you to Kevin G, because he sponsored this. And if you want to sponsor a stream, you can hit me up on my email, madmaximism with 2 X's at gmail.com. I've been asking for $100 for a sponsor stream, but it's got to go up. And if you sponsor a stream, you got to give me a bunch of ideas, and it may lead into something else with a big theme like I'm doing right now. So let's talk about Billy Bob, because this movie was a very good movie. It was a very good movie. It was great. We love our Billy Bob Thornton. No, Billy Bob Thornton in this film, which has an amazing cast, it's got Robert Patrick. You telling me Bad Boy is real? It's got Kevin Bacon. It's got Ray Stevenson. R.I.P. to Ray Stevenson, who went to my drama school. He's passed away, unfortunately, but he's in the film. And it's got Robert Duvall. You need to go around the track slow. Listen here, Mr. Hollywood. We call this Days of Thunder. And we're not going to have you speeding around the track fast like Mr. Hollywood, Tom Cruise. You're going to go around the track slow, like Velcro, just peeling one of them little teeth off at a time. Eating ice cream. Yeah, so the movie's called JAYNE MANSFIELD'S CAR, and it's actually a kind of King Learian story. And so Robert Duvall is the patriarch of this Southern family, and he's got 3 sons and a few daughters, and basically his wife left him prior to the start of the movie and has gone off to England and had a whole other family with John Hurt, and Ray Stevenson is their son, and the wife has died, and they are bringing the wife back to be buried, and the family has to stay through a series of sort of unfortunate events, and with Robert Duvall at his proto plantation. The reason it's called JAYNE MANSFIELD'S CAR is because the town has JAYNE MANSFIELD'S CAR. Now remember, JAYNE Mansfield was killed in a car accident when her scarf got tangled in the wheels of the car, and I think she got decapitated and crushed. JAYNE Mansfield was JAYNE Mansfield the one with Anton LaVey? I think was she the one in the Church of Satan? And there's also the other, I get the 2 actresses confused, because the other actress who was in a car, and she definitely got decapitated. She's wearing a scarf and got caught up in the tires, and she got decapitated. Maybe that wasn't JAYNE Mansfield, but JAYNE Mansfield definitely was in a horrible car accident, and she was the Anton LaVey girl. Well, they have the car on display, and this forms a motif in the film where Robert Duvall is a cop who, at the start, is an ex-cop sheriff who is called in to look at a car wreck on this country road. And he says in the film that he likes going to car wrecks. He likes seeing these car wrecks. And I think this is because, again, we have the exterior car wreck mimics the unstoppable force on the road of his life. So his family keeps messing up, keep fucking up, and his wife has left him, and this, Jayne Mansfield kind of serves as a avatar for his wife, having passed away here. And Billy Bob Thornton in the film is a World War II vet who is a former fighter ace who is stuck because of what Christopher Walken suffers in Catch Me If You Can, with the sort of unspeakable, what they call now trauma of the war. So he's been burned. He's burned all over his body. When we see him, he's always clothed, but finally he meets this woman and he reveals himself for the first time. It's really weird because he also is a kind of a pervert in the movie, but he's locked inside of himself. He's a kind of he's a Gicky Gacker's gooner in the movie, but he is completely burned and scarred, covered in scar tissue. And so the symbolism here is that he has to break through the shell of his scar tissue and reveal himself, be himself, and be open to loving this woman in the film, just like the other characters have to do. Kevin Bacon is the third son of Robert Duvall in the movie, and he's a kind of hippie boomer doper in the movie who also has a son, and that guy ends up being the opposite of Kevin Bacon. He's also kind of a doper, but he makes friends with some of the other people in the family. What I liked about this movie is that it reminded me a little bit of one of my friends, not in terms of how they are, but one of my friends when I was growing up, and I used to spend a lot of time, especially in the summers, on their, they have a big property, and they had there was a patriarch of the family who was. He was nothing like the guy in Robert Duvall in this movie. He was totally awesome. He was a great man. Not just a great man to me, but he was a great man in the family and a great man in the world, is all I'll say. And he was just a great man. And I love the fact that despite all of the family problems in the movie, that the wholesome aspect of especially America is that one of the goals that people learn as they get older is if you're going to make all this money or if you're going to be successful, it is not to purchase items. I'm preaching to the choir here, but it's not to purchase items. It's to be fruitful and multiply and have your family around you during the times when you need them and during holidays. You celebrate holidays together. You have holy days with your family, and that all of the problems can be solved. I don't know. I really love that. I love that it's Christmas time coming up and that it's important, it's important for me to be with my family. I thank my sister for that. Helping me to get down there this year. But, it's a thing that I'm just comparing it to when I'm younger, and you don't know the reasons yet why it's so important, really, when you're young. But when you're older, especially if you don't, have kids like me, you feel an absence, you feel you wish, you pray that you can be like that type of family, not the family in this movie, but the family, like you have family around you. I know I get kind of at a loss for words when I speak about this stuff because I think it's so beautiful, but this takes on a Lyrian element, but it's almost like Lear as a tragic comedy. You know, Lear is a full on tragedy, and of course, I've covered King Lear on in depth, but King Lear is based around a retiring king who tests his family through their audible expressions of love. So Regan and Goneril say that they love their dad, but they clearly don't. And Cordelia, the heart, won't say it, but loves her dad. And it ends up with blinded Gloucester and King Lear perishing, and a typical Shakespearean tragedy. But we see that, like they say in the thin red line, in the let me feel the lack. In the lack of that, we have what love is and what love should be, right? In this movie, thankfully, we end with a happy ending where the characters work themselves out. But I think that when you have your love for your dad is supposed to mirror man's love for God. That's why we fear our Father. That's because the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. We're supposed to fear Him because, in one way, they are firm. They're firm with us, just like Leo in Catch Me If You Can. His father doesn't provide him the one thing that he needs, and so he's trying to make up for that with his own life, and that's where he goes wrong. Eventually goes right. But when you fear him, you also can be solid in the fact that when you need him, he will have the same sort of gravitas and fierceness to fight for you. Right. The man who is weak around you, it also can't be relied on to provide for you. So I like that aspect of the film. I like how Robert Duvall in the movie is a kind of a gruff character, but he's full of love. And I think that's, we see that in the softer, kinder moments. He's obviously loves his family. He's rough with them because he loves them in the movie. And I think that's great. Another movie with Billy Bob Thornton that you are not going to think is wholesome. And it's probably the most unwholesome movie ever. But there is something truly heartwarming about the movie. Is Bad Santa. Bad Santa is a great movie. It's a great movie. Your name is Thurman Merman? Are you fucking with me? Oh my gosh. Dude, I can't even think about this movie. I think this movie is so funny. My friend Logan, he ran this movie when we were living in New York. We sat down. I was sick one day. We lived in a fifth floor walk up in the East Village, and I was there. I was living with my three friends, and my friend Logan rented this movie, and holy shit, I remember I laughed so hard from start to finish this movie. That's rare. That's rare with a movie, especially nowadays. You don't get that. But Bad Santa, I rewatched it the other night, and dude, I could not breathe. Billy Bob is so good in this movie. He's such a degenerate. He's just such a piece of shit in this movie. And it's crazy how it ends up being pretty wholesome. He's actually got a heart in the movie. He seems like he has no heart in the film. He seems like, he gets out of his car. He gets out of his car in the parking lot, and like 400 beers fall out of the car, right? He he pissed himself. He was sitting. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh, okay. I can't really cover the movie because it's too funny. I really love this movie, man. Thurman Merman. The kid's name is Thurman Murray. Oh my God. All right. I'm sorry. That's not a great. That's not a great. Oh, the scene where he's in the bath, he's got the washcloth on his face, and he says, "Are you fucking with me?" Oh my God. Anyway, it ends up being wholesome because he because he moves into all right. He moves into the house with his grandmother, who he thinks is dead, and and the kid's dad is in. Oh, hey, here's The Big Short. The kid's dad is in jail for financial crimes. Right? Holy shit! Just realized that. And the kid is totally lost. He's getting bullied, and Billy Bob becomes this Santa Claus father for the kid. And maybe I need to cover this one with, you know what? I need to cover this one with DPH. This would be a great movie to cover with David Patrick Harry. Our friend David Patrick Harry out there. So anyway, he ends up providing for the kid, and he teaches him, and he's a safe cracker. He is a safe cracker. He does rob the charity. I know, but that's not great. But somehow it's a good movie. All right, let's move on. Let's move on from Bad Santa. What was it? The other. Okay, so another wholesome movie that you think is not going to be wholesome. Deuce Bigelow, Male Gigolo, which, by the way, the guy who plays the actual Gigolo in the movie went to my drama school. And so Deuce Bigelow, Male Gigolo, which you think would be. Have you guys seen this? I mean, it's from, this is pre-Big Nine, so it has a kind of, beautiful aspect to it in a way, just from the fact that things were different before Big Nine. It's a stupid comedy. And Crispy says, "Pull yourself together." Okay, sir. Yeah, okay. Now, it's a stupid comedy, and it's so stupid that you think it's going to be pretty bad, and it gets kind of raunchy. But what I liked about this movie is that Rob Schneider, you could put your weed in it. Rob Schneider is a loser aquarium guy or whatever, and he gets a job cleaning this. You can do it. Cleaning this aquarium for this gigolo who goes out of town, and he ends up getting a set of rules that he then violates, and everything goes wrong. But what's great about the movie is that it doesn't go into gratuitous territory. It's raunchy, but it's not gratuitous. He goes on these, what's he called? Man whore jobs. But he never actually, nothing ever happens with the people that he goes to do business with or whatever, as a sex worker. And in fact, he sees their vulnerabilities and he makes them feel better as humans. It's actually pretty good. They end up he goes to one girl's house and he plays Jenga or whatever, plays Scrabble. Another one, he hooks up with somebody else. And eventually, he falls in love in the movie, for because he's a genuine guy and full of love, and he's just a sort of bumbling dumbass in circumstances. And this isn't the kind of annoying, bumbling dumbass dad that you get this on TV or whatever now all the time. That's all movies are now. You get the white dad who's a dumbass, and because mom has to do everything for him, all that stuff. You don't get any of that. that stuff is just programmed. That's just planned. That's just to denigrate the family. All that. That you don't get any of that. We get the pre-big non-comedy of a guy who's just trying. He's a genuine person, and he's obviously got something to offer, and and it's actually pretty good. Another one is Happy Gilmore. Happy Gilmore is everybody knows Happy Gilmore, right? What? Friends listen to Endless Love in the Dark. I mean, oh, you can count, and you can count on me waiting for you in the parking lot, right? It's got all that in it. But it's actually a wholesome movie because, of course, Happy Gilmore is a violent guy who's bad at hockey and then becomes a golfer, right? And he goes up against the villain played by the great Christopher McDonald in the movie. And I think people forget that his whole goal in the film is to buy back the house for his grandmother, and he can keep his family together and fall in love. And so yes, I mean, and it's also, by the way, it's got the great Chubbs in it. R.I.P. Carl Weathers. We've only just begun to live. White lace and promises. That's one of my favorite scenes in all movies. I wish I could get a full version of Carl Weathers singing that Carpenter song. I mean, that's great. I don't want to listen to the Carpenter's version. I want to listen to Carl Weathers doing it. It's amazing. It's a very good scene. But it's cool. And Ben Stiller. Yes, Mav, it's Ben Stiller. All right. Oh, your fingers hurt? Now your back's going to hurt. You just pulled landscaping duty. So it ends up being a really wholesome film. The physical comedy and all that is funny, but it's got heart to it. And I think that, Adam Sandler movies do. I like this. I like that Adam Sandler movies and like Seinfeld purposefully do this thing, which is the happy universe in films, where the things that go wrong aren't that bad, and you can recover, and your attitude and how you treat other people, is what matters. And obviously, it's not that. I don't mean like it's not just being. It's not being a nice guy, and that's kind of crazy because you look back and you think of these movies as full of people who are nice guys, and they are good people. What's a good person, right? They're good people, but it's not that. They're actually not very nice. They're actually not very nice guys, but they're kind. They're kind-hearted. And I think that's pretty cool in Happy Gilmore. Another one, what's this? Is this the last one? I think this is the last one I'll cover. The last one I'll cover tonight this is out of nowhere, but somebody was bringing up creature movies a little while ago, and it sort of popped onto the radar, and that is Tremors. Tremors is a fantastic movie. It's very well written. Everything about the movie's great. It's a B movie that transcends the category. It's an action comedy monster flick where you're not afraid of the monsters, but you realize the danger why they sort of exist. And also, there is a kind of Howard Hughesian element to this, which is that one of the reasons for the Tremors is, and they imply this in the film, is that they may be some aberration of a nuclear spill or a nuclear test. And I think that's pretty cool in the film because they're out west, they're out in the desert. The Howard Hughes element is that when Howard Hughes was buying up casinos in Vegas and living in the penthouse and having all of his Mormons bring him his memos, wearing Kleenex boxes and tissue on their hands in a completely sanitized room. He living there, suffering from morphine addiction, which he'd gotten after his horrible fire in his plane. When he died, they found all these broken needles in his arms and veins. You can see the X-ray photographs. Anyway, he felt tremors in his hotel room and realized that it was because of the nuclear testing that they were doing in the desert. So he fired off a couple phone calls and memos to Richard Nixon and had him stop the testing because he didn't want his bed to shake, which is crazy, but there's a sort of a provenance for that in the film because the subterranean leviathans are roaming the desert, and they never really make mention of the fact that these are like dinosaurs. It doesn't go into that territory. It's pretty cool. And so what we get in here, again, is the wholesome idea of a kind of old America that still exists. We get out west, we're out west, and we have people roughing it, but they also are modern people making the best of it that they can in a small village. And there's population 12, and we've got all the different archetypes in the film. That's really cool. So, of course, we get Valentine. Valentine is also a Shakespearean name. What play is Valentine in? Is that All's Well That Ends Well? We get Valentine, and we get, that's Kevin Bacon, and we get, he's a young man, and we get the old man, the old man, and Henny Youngman was a comedian, right? Take my wife, please. And Gary Man was just some comedian who worked at Comedy Central. But the older man, who's actually only, Fred Ward was only, I think, 50 in this film, which is 6 years older than me. That's Alex's age. But he's the old man in the film, and he's trying to set up Valentine, who, by the way, wears a heart-shaped belt buckle in the film, with the scientist who is out in the desert. And what I like about the movie is that it's not a scientismic movie where the scientist is questioning reality and how people do things. She's actually just a pretty normal girl who is trying to do her instrumentation, reading her instruments, and she's also silly. She's got the zinc on her nose, and she's also got bright eyes. You can see the life in her eyes, and she takes care of herself, but she also allows for the other two guys to provide for her as men in the movie. And we see that the characters who run into danger, one of whom is the hippie mom who's got the hippie single mom in the desert with the two kids, get in trouble because she is not able to provide for the son, because the son is a jerk to everybody in the town because he doesn't have a dad in the movie who tells him to stop acting the way he does, even though he's still just being a kid. I mean, he's okay. Also, the little girl on the pogo stick in the movie is Ariana Richards, who is the same age as me. And when I saw the movie, I thought she was awesome. I thought she was, and then she was in Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park was my first date movie. I was like, what was I, 12, 13? I was about to be 13, and that was my first date movie. And of course, Ariana Richards is in the movie, and I used to like her a lot. Anyway, she's my age, and we have, of course, Mr. Chang in the movie who played Snot in Revenge of the Nerds, and he's also, of course, in Big Trouble in Little China. He's great. He's probably the best character in the movie because when they finally kill one of the Tremors, he barters with Fred Ward, and then he, like, for this business deal, and puts it up on the wall. Pictures here, $5. There's only 12 people in the town. So it's a great movie, and the way that they figure things out in the film is extremely wholesome. Yes, you're exactly right, Anthony. It would be that if it were made today. It would not be good. And I think that the fact that it's a B movie and that it's so well done means that they can concentrate on story, feelings, and we get exposition in the movie subtly. We immediately care about the characters, and we know about how the characters live without having to dive needlessly into stupid dialogue or CGI effects. the best, you know what? I take that back. The best character in the movie is the dad from Family Matters, who's married to Reba McEntire in the film. Because when I saw the movie, I remember seeing it as a kid, and I immediately went outside dressed like the, not Family Matters. Did I say Family Matters? Family Ties. Family Ties dad, because of course he's got the elephant gun. He's got like a 44. He's got an elephant gun. He's got all these weapons, and he's a prepper. So in the movie, Reba McEntire and Family Ties dad are preppers, and they live in this compound where they've prepared for all eventualities, and they want to live in peace. And they are fully locked and loaded. And I would go outside with my water guns and Uzis and pistols, because you had those in the late 80s and early 90s, and they look very realistic. And I just love that character. I loved it when he used the elephant gun. And then they made the dynamite. They made some PIPE bombs and all that. I just think it was really cool. But it also shows that one of the little things in the movie that you now notice if you watch it is that there's a scene where they're arguing when they get on the back of the killdozer, and this guy loses it, and he says, who made you, who put you in charge? Who put you guys in charge? And it shows that the dynamics of working in a group or working in a community are not always so clear cut, and it takes leadership, and it's not just armed leadership. It's not just the character who has the most. It takes personality, and it takes kindness, and really it takes serving others to lead. And so that's what Valentine and Fred Ward balance off of each other, and they sort of end up accomplishing. We have both old and young represented in the movie. And so the Family Ties guy is his main concern, even though he wants to save the rest of the town, is with his wife. And Reba McEntire's great in this movie. She cools him off when he sort of regresses into almost infantile territory, when he starts hurling accusations. And you realize that they were preparing all this time. They were prepping, but you can't prep for everything. And sometimes you have to improvise, and you have to realize that it takes other people to fill in the gaps. So they didn't count on a subterranean nuke Leviathan to break into their bunker. They thought everything was going to come from the top. But it just shows you that people have to be willing to have a good community and to reach out to others and to be known for being kind. I think that's really important in the movie. And again, the wide open spaces in the movie, the exterior, the large mountains and the arid desert are juxtaposed against the tiny village that they live, the tiny town they live in, and the human capacity for love and kindness that these people have. It's a desert, and they're in a wilderness, but they're gonna make it to their promised land, and their promised land is that they all live together with one another, and that they save each other. They think they've made it to the promised land, this wilderness, but they haven't made it yet. And they love, like, it's great how Valentine and Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward, like, when they're like out there riding fences and stuff and putting up the barbed wire, they even comment on, like, why would you give this up for anything? And that's crazy. That's like part of the American dream. But the other part of the American dream that still exists is to be able to provide, to be able to serve others, to live and to, like, experience love and human kindness with each other. Because again, that's, I've talked about how art is one of the second part of all art is, what do we do while we're here? And they don't all make it in the movie, but they try the best that they can, and I think that's really cool. I think it actually is a really well done, wholesome movie. Again, there's nothing gratuitous in the movie. There's kind of squanchy special effects with the worm, but it's not scary, and it's not spiritually gross. It's not like you're in fear for, who you are in the movie. It's not some sort of inner beast. It's something clearly exterior that they have to fight. And I think that's really cool. I think it's really, really cool in the movie. So, yeah, so that's Catch Me If You Can, The Big Short, Bad Santa, JAYNE MANSFIELD'S Car, Tremors, Happy Gilmore. We did a bunch tonight. Listen, I'm going to go through the super chats right now. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Really appreciate you, as usual, as always. And thanks, got 56 people in here right now. Thank you. Appreciate y'all. Please make sure that you go back and watch my other streams. Watch the ones I've done recently. I think people like the Gladiator 2 analysis that I did. I try to be generous when taking time with movies. And I was probably too generous with that movie, but, Ersat says, have any of y'all been to Graceland? Of course. Elvis was the top of the dog pile. His house is super lame by today's standards. Yeah, well, what's funny, Ersatz, is that I've been to Graceland many times. Everybody here, especially who's been here for a long time, knows that I love Graceland. I love Elvis. And I've been there many times. And actually, it's funny you say that because there's a purpose for that when you go to Graceland. What you see is that it's not that it's lame, it's that it's tacky and kitsch. And the reason for that is because Elvis's life mirrors so many celebrities that we see today who grew up with nothing. If a person was poor or grew up with nothing and then they suddenly have everything, the possessions that they have tend to be superficial and cheap. And watch any old, 20-year-old episode of Cribs, and you'll see that. Look at any celebrity. A lot of celebrity houses. That's what separates celebrities and who people see as the alpha level of of society versus people, for example, that that's old money versus nouveau riche. The people who are actually in control or at the top, or people who are grounded in wealth through land, for example, or generational wealth through land, tend to show their wealth when they show physical objects through hereditary items or through antiques or through properties where the property value is also wealthy. Did I mention that Jethro Tull thing that I've been watching recently? Was that on the last one, or did I just do that in real life 100 times? I don't know. But when you watch there are a few Jethro Tull documentaries, and he's one of these guys who grew up sort of middle class in England and now is extremely wealthy in Scotland. He's got homes, different places. But what I really liked about some of these documentaries about Ian Anderson from Jethro Tull is that one of his houses in Scotland, he made a salmon farm in one of the lakes he's got water on his land, and he has a salmon fishery, and then he has big game, or not big game, he's got game hunting. He turned it into a traditional, he became a sort of laird, and he has a kind of ecological respect and environmental respect, which I really like. And he tried to fit into the landscape and the lifestyle as best he could. So, for instance, like in the documentary, he's coming home in he's got like an old Land Rover Defender, and he comes home and his wife's there, and his wife is doing the books for him. She's got an office, and he says, I'm going to go off to the studio. And he goes off to the studio. He's got a studio on his property, and he's recording one of his new albums, and it's just him. He fires it up. He does a synth. He records his vocals sitting down, and he's just doing all the music himself, and that's what he does for the day. And, he's not – you don't see Ferraris and you know, you don't see Aston Martins and stuff. It's his lifestyle was trying to mimic and became this rise in the in the ranks of society by trying to show the things that he found valuable, and I think that that's pretty cool. So you see that with some of these guys. Elvis, you didn't. You see you see that sort of him attempting to do that, but it's mostly kitsch. And again, that's because, of course, also with Elvis, the exterior is juxtaposed against the interior. He lived a rich inner life and was certain. Of course, we know that he was spiritually hungry and curious, and was I think really looking for meaning in Christ, and he is obviously in a lot of pain. That's his. You can go back to that Elvis analysis called "Hurt," where I talked about his the biography that Peter Gerelnick wrote about him, and he is in incredible pain. The thing with singers is that, especially just singers, people who don't write their music, but just performers, he's a big showbiz guy. And the great singers, doesn't matter who they are, the great singers will always live. They always live the words that they're singing. They sing they sing around the notes, between the notes, and they sing the words of a song as if the language of the song is occurring to them in the moment. They've never thought of the words, and it's a true emotional response. And I don't know if there are many singers who feel even visually the way that Elvis does, and that's what I like about him. Anyway, so let me look at the super chats here. Thank you guys for being here. Great questions and responses here. Just got a response from DPH. I think we're going to be doing another Christmas stream. We've been doing Christmas streams here for the last 2 years, and so we'll be doing another Christmas movie stream. Maybe Die Hard. We'll see. I did Die Hard last year by myself, but I want to do it with DPH, so we'll see. Hey, yo, shouts out to Crystalline right there. Kristen drops me $10 on Cash App. Let me check that out. Thanks, Kristen. Really appreciate that. Kristen drops me $10. Let's see if she left a comment, too. She did. See, she had no comment. Thank you, Kristen. Really appreciate you. That's so awesome. You are very generous. You are very generous. You are great. You are the best. And I thank you. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. That is so kind and so sweet. Yo, we got a couple things out here tonight. We got a few super chats. Thank you for being generous. Hey, you still have time if you want to support. You can drop it on the links provided. Thank you, Jason, for dropping those links right there. Jason, really appreciate you. Thank you for the super chats. I'll get to those in a second. Let's see. First of all, let me open this up. First of all, I want to thank... Let me read this before, because I don't want to dox any names here. Yo, thanks to Quinn right there. Thank you so much, QW, who drops $5. Red Bull Funds from PayPal. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Man, that's great. You know just what to give me. Yo, shouts out to, let's see. Shouts out to Sammy. Whoa, big time. Shouts out to Sammy out there who drops $50 on PayPal. Thank you so much. Keep it up, BLA. Big time. Thanks. Yo, hold on. Shouts out to Sammy out there who drops $50. Sammy, thank you so much. May you have a wonderful Christmas. Thank you so much for helping me to have a wonderful Christmas. Shouts out to Jason out there who drops $5. Appreciate you, Jason. Always. Thank you so much. You are the best. Love you, man. Hey, listen to this. Shouts out, big one right here. Shouts out to Michael out there who drops $100. He drops $100 on PayPal. Big time support tonight. Big time support, people. Thank you so much, Michael. That's really awesome. Give me something. Hold on. What would Papa say in this moment? What would AJ say in this moment? He would say, God, I can't even think of anything. He would say, you know, they've got cows making human milk, spider guts. They're going to kill you and your family, and you're all. That's not great. It's all right. I muted it. Yeah, thank you, man. Really appreciate you. Thank you so much. What? God, I don't even know anything I can do is worth $100. Jeez. Listen, really appreciate you, man. Seriously, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for that. That's really so kind. Yeah, big time. We got Michael, Jason, Sammy, Quinn, and Kristen right there. Thank you. You all are the best. That means a lot to me. Really appreciate it. And you guys don't forget to check out the old streams. Please make sure you go to my literary streams. Go to my modern streams. Cormac McCarthy, Don DeLeo, Shakespeare, romantic poetry. Check out my poetry streams. Check out my novel streams. I'll be doing some sort of reading for the members of my book Runes in the near future because I'm still adding to it. And okay, Jason says Papa Ewok would say, yeah, okay, that's good. Of course, Jason knows. We're sold out of super male vitality. Ah! Oh, 50% off. 50% off. Yeah, that's good. When he gets pissed and does the live read, 50% off. Let's see. Let me go to fan funding here. Yo, let's look at these super chats. Yo, Ersatz drops $20 and says, having Arturo Fuentes on me this Christmas, my friend. Thank you, Ersatz. Really appreciate you. You are the best. Thank you. Let me give you a little heart there, right there. There you go. Thank you so much. And Ersatz drops another $20 for the laughs. Happy Thanksgiving to y'all. Happy Thanksgiving to you. Another $20. Another $20. Thank you so much. See, Gorilla Biscuits drops, grabs gifted 1 membership. Thank you so much. Mark gifted 5 memberships. Thank you so much. Welcome to High IQ Book Enjoyers, Almighty PBR Street Gang. Thank you so much. You guys are the best. Really generous tonight. Thank y'all. Listen, don't forget to like the stream. Leave some comments afterwards. If you're in doubt as to what to write for a comment, sometimes people don't want to leave comments. I know it can be annoying, but just go in there and write algo, write books, write sup, doesn't matter. Give me a comment. It helps me out with the algorithm. Please make sure you give me a like, share the stream, check out the old streams. I need to get these numbers up, you guys. I'm at, 3,800? I'm trying to get to 4,000. I mean, we've been kind of, listen, slow and steady wins the race, whatever the race is. And we're kind of going, we're up. We've been plateauing for a while. I can't break 1,000 on Instagram. So please, if you're not following me on Instagram, I've been at like 980 for a long time now. I'm hoping to get 1,000 on Instagram. I would really appreciate that. That Mark just grabbed another 5 memberships. Thank you so much, Mark. That helps me out so much. You guys, yeah. So if you want to hear some of my own original content, which is stuff I've written, please grab a membership. If I can break, I don't know, if I can break 90 members this week, then I will do that. I will read you I will read you some of my own work, and that is Personae poems on megalomania, about the third REICH, Imperial Rome, and the Troubles, Northern Ireland, and I think you might enjoy it. Also, I'll be doing more film, movie, and book analysis soon. Of course, I'll be coming back with. You'll see me on Jamie's channel coming up. And yeah, if you got movie ideas, book ideas, please drop them. Let me know in the comments below. Help me get these numbers up. And that's about it, you guys. Listen, tomorrow's December 1st. It's the first of the month. Catching checks in the month. Hey. And we are giving some plan, and don't fuck with my wife, the first of the month. Smoking, joking, rolling blunts, sipping up our day houses again. Go, we got the bustin' on. All night, we high, we got the bustin' where 99. I give him some play, yo, double up. What you need, we got weed. First the show, but a lay low, and a popo creeping and roast oh, but it can't get away. And it toss out, yeah, yo, keep your bankroll. Oh, we having a celebration. Gotta stay high. That's a little Bone Thugs for you for the first of the month. That's the first of the month. Listen, if you could only see the way she loves me. All right, y'all. That's about it for me. Let's, what? All right, go. Here's Sting gonna cut off his new album. Take it away. Can't do it. Here's Sting gonna cut off his new album, y'all. Let's hand it off to Rooks G here. What do you want to hear? Let's hand it off to Rooks G here for Sun's Out, Just Kidding. And hope everybody has a beautiful, beautiful fall for the rest of fall. We go into December hard. Let's have a wonderful holiday season. And listen, was it worth it? Yeah, it's worth it. If you're strong enough. So, thank y'all so much. I really appreciate everybody here. I will see you soon. Reach out to your family or friends. And that's it. Just keep on living. Keep on LIVIN. So here we go. Here is Rooks G with Sun's Out, Just Kidding. Peace, y'all. Love you. Peace.